so I can like actually know what to do.
Okay. So as we said, a rotation spins a figure around a fixed point called the center of rotation. Right? Now, what is that center of rotation? What is the center of a graph called? Anyone remember? Origin. Ding, ding, ding. Thank you.
That would clear that.
So, for our examples, the center of rotation will be the origin. Thank you, Brenda. And we'll rotate in increments of 90. What does that little circle mean?
Degrees.
90 degrees. Okay, so there's going to be 4 different turns then, you could say. All right? We'll have, here, watch me in the chair. Right? Okay, so if I just turn right and face the wall, right, I'm turning 90 degrees. Okay? What if I turn from here all the way to here?
180.
180. I did a 180, right? Okay, now what about here, or there all the way to here?
2 something.
2 something, close.
80? 70? 270.
270, and then a full rotation. Everyone
360.
should know that, right? Because we say that a lot, right? Oh, he did a 360, right? If you're looking at skateboarding or something like that.
Actually, barely anything.
Well, how many of y'all have ever skateboarded or wakeboarded or any of that? Nada? Skateboard, wakeboard, surfboard.
I have a skateboard.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't skate much. I did wakeboarding and could barely do a 360. That usually would wipe out. I didn't have my own boat or anything. But that's the idea, right? We're doing 90, 180, which is 2 90s, right? 90 plus 90 is 180. 270 and 360. Okay. Just a little quick tip to remember these. There's 2 patterns you can notice, right? It goes 90, 80, 70, 60. Y'all see that?
Whoa. Wait.
90, 80, 70, 60. Okay? And then the other pattern is if you say 90 has a 0 in front of it, it goes 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay? So there's 4 of them, right? And it goes 90, 80. So hopefully that helps you remember. Really, the only one people struggle to remember is 270. But if you remember that pattern, 90 degrees, 80 degrees, 270 degrees, 360 degrees, right? It's going down by increments of 10 on the tens place. Okay?
Wait, so you could say someone rotated 3 times and then you can just think of that and then be like 270?
Yes. If somebody does 3 turns, 3 right 90-degree turns, it's a 270. Yeah. Okay? But now there's another thing that we need to go over, right? Because I spun towards the right, you could say, right?
Clockwise?
Clockwise, right? I could have spun the other way, which would be called what?
Counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise. And those are going to be the 2 ways that we talk about this. Now, I know some of you out there, you don't have to say who you are because I want you to be embarrassed if you don't know how to read an actual clock.
I do.
That's me. I don't.
I do.
I do have to. I don't.
I have to.
I
just now know how to read a clock. I just now know how to read a
I'm
clock.
not embarrassed.
It took a long time.
We got different clocks.
Can you read a
got
clock?
right? We got clocks where we
I do
right?
both. And I have to read.
It's okay, Shima. It took me a long time.
In minutes.
Okay, anyway, here's just a little video, right? The reason we call it clockwise, what direction is the clock hand moving?
Clockwise.
Right? It's moving clockwise. Okay? Now, counterclockwise would just mean what? Moving the opposite direction. Backwards in terms of a clock, right?
Going back to the past.
Yes.
Big Bang Theory.
So, clockwise, counterclockwise. Very good. Okay, so that kind of takes care of most of the basics for us. So this first one is clockwise. I'm going to capitalize the W just because normally you see it abbreviated CW and then counter. What does counter mean?
Against.
Yeah, against. Good. Counterclockwise, which you'll see abbreviated CCW. For example, on this packet, which I may or may not give you for Friday, right? It'll say rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. rotate 270 degrees clockwise. Those are the two options. Okay?
Why'd you do that?
What?
Why'd you do that?
Do what?
Do that.
Give you all work? Okay. Consider each quadrant as another 90 degrees in the rotation. So what that means, right? What that means is that every quadrant you move over, right, and we're going to see that with these shapes in a pretty clear way. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Every time you move over a quadrant, that's another 90 degrees turn.
Are we learning
Okay.
Roman numerals? I know.
Hopefully you already know these, right? When you learn a graph, you learn that they're in Roman numerals, right?
I
1,
don't get past 4.
that you only need to know up to 4 right now, and so that's good enough. Okay. 5 is literally just a v. Okay. The reason 4 is IV is because it's 5 minus 1. Okay, so that's why the I is on the left.
Wait, so what would 8 look like then?
Okay, 8 would be VIII.
What?
5 plus 3 is 8.
What is 100?
100 is C.
A, B, C, D. So
Yeah.
what's Z?
Z is not a Roman numeral. Okay.
Where y'all at?
So, moving down to these examples. I'm going to do one of these, and then I'm calling popsicle sticks, okay? So be ready. Prepare yourself.
We're gonna do it on the board.
Clockwise, so we have our... we need to write this for the first one, so you remember. Pre-image, and why is this the pre-image, and why is this the image?
Because that's the free image is the original.
Because the pre-image
Image
is
is the
different than the image.
What's different about these two?
They're rotated.
Well, rotated, but this one, right, it has the apostrophe, the prime notation. Okay? That's what makes it prime notation. Okay, so you might have a picture and it'll say what rotation occurred. One of them will be designated with primes, which will be the one that was transformed. Okay, for those of you not taking notes right now, this is very difficult. I am not going to have time to explain it to you again. So you do that at your own peril. All right, pre-image and image. So what's pre-image and image? This says prime. So what is the degrees that it rotated? Well, that's just I can draw it. I can connect a 90-degree angle from here to here. It moved over, like we said, it moved over one quadrant, right? From quadrant 2 to quadrant 1. So that's just 90 degrees. We count in 90-degree increments. So that's 90 clockwise. What about counterclockwise?
Wouldn't that... Wait. 270.
270, right? You had it, Christian, just the wrong number. So that'd be, right, a 90 degrees, another 90 degrees, and a third 90 degrees to get. And so you kind of see this relationship, 90 degrees clockwise and 270 degrees counterclockwise. They're like a pair, okay? They go together,
Mr. Lynn.
like peanut butter and bananas.
Huh? When I was getting lost, because I was thinking the pre-image was like the after image. Like,
Please, what's
not the
Guys, Lily has a real question. Right.
after the image.
What do I do? What?
I was confused because I thought pre-image was after the image because it had the pre.
Pre meaning like before, yeah, like preview or
But
prefix.
Like,
Something.
I don't know. That's what I was messed up on.
Yeah, I don't like that notation either, but that is, like, I wish they would call this like the new image and old image or something like that. It would make more sense. I agree. But that is a notation, so I need to show you all that way. Okay. Questions? All right, popsicle stick time.
Uh-oh.
See you at the... All right. What we're going from our pre-image here to our image, right? Our prime image here. How many degrees clockwise is that? Well, it would be 90 counterclockwise, right? If we went this way, so that's correct for counterclockwise. What about clockwise? We're doing one quadrant, right? Moving one quadrant, 2 quadrants, 3 quadrants, right? So that's 3/4 turn. That's going to be 270. Yeah, okay, you see how that works? That's 270 degrees, right? We have 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees. 180 is always directly across. Hint, hint.
Wait, I don't understand. 180 is, what did you say?
Number 14,
180 is always what?
directly across, like diagonal from it. Herman. From here, aquí, to here. Allí. How many degrees? ¿Cómo se dice degree? Degree?
No, grados.
¿Qué?
Grados.
Grado.
90 grados,
Grado.
360 grados.
What do you think?
90 degrees.
Not 90. 90 would be like a 90-degree angle. Oh, I'll show it this way. See, 90 degrees is like this, right? That's 90 degrees. Okay, so 90 degrees would mean we're moving it, actually it'd be better like this. We're moving it from here to here. So it's 90 plus 90.
I got it now.
180. And if it's that, right, clockwise, it's 180. What is it counterclockwise this way? Es igual. See?
How do you know? Okay, so most of it's 270 and 90, but how do you know, like, oh, never mind. I don't know. It's because, Sophie, they're like across from each other. Like, going counterclockwise, then it's different than going clockwise.
Just like, okay, I'm in my chair right now, right, and I'm looking this direction, right, directly across from me, like a 180. If you do a 180, or standing up, right, and I do a 180, what am I going to do?
You're just going to turn us around?
It's like a half rotation, right? A full rotation all the way back to where you started is 360. A half rotation, right, halfway across the halfway rotated across the graph is going to be 180 degrees. Number 9, Sabian.
Yeah.
Right? From D to D prime, what is our clockwise rotation? That would be counterclockwise.
$270.
270, very good. Okay, so we'd have 90 degrees here, clockwise, right? It'd be 90. We'd have 180 degrees here. We'd have 270 here, and then all the way back around would be a 360. Right? So it rotated all the way to 270 degrees.
How will we know which way to go?
So this is just something you need to know, right? You need clockwise means the direction a clock hand turns, right? So if you're looking at a clock, you don't even need to know how to read a clock, but if you're looking at an analog clock, right, meaning like an actual clock, then the way the minute hand goes on the clock is clockwise, right? That kind of rotation. You can think about it as turning to the right, and if you know how to use a screwdriver, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
I
Yeah.
think that's never worked for me. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I still use my fingers for left and right.
No, because you know those freaking like sensing things like that plug into the wallflowers, and they're backwards.
Yes.
That confused me.
Which one?
Listen, which one?
From Bath and Body Works. You don't know it.
All right.
How do you know he doesn't know it?
No, I'm confused. What?
Oh no.
Who's it? Number
Yeah,
one.
Sophie. I don't know.
Unless you're in the southern hemisphere, and then the clocks go backwards there.
They are? I thought I was saying.
Not really. All right. Number 1. Okay, so we're directly across. What did we say about being directly across? What degrees is that, Sophie? So you can even draw the angle if you want, right? This is a 90-degree angle with our shape. It's not at 90 degrees. It's at two 90-degree angles. So 90 plus 90 is Which one of these?
180.
180, yeah. So it's a, and you can call that, right, it's a half rotation. Okay, where a 90 degree is like a quarter turn. This is like half of a turn, and then a 270 is 3/4 turn. Okay. And counterclockwise, it's also 180, right? Because you can just go the other direction. The 180 ones are a little more simple. Okay, and then last one going to 13. Emily. From here to here, ¿qué es la grado? No, grado. 90, bien. 90. And now counterclockwise, so opposite dirección, so that's 90 y sí, 260. Muy bien. All right. So she said 270 degrees, right, counterclockwise. Okay, and like I said, every single rotation will have a pair, clockwise versus and counterclockwise. And flip your page. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the way that you used to have to learn how to do this. And I'm not going to make you learn how to do it this year, Lainey. Everybody? Because it's difficult. Thank you. Because it's difficult. And because the sheet I printed out with the rules on it, memorizing a little bit of how to remember the rules here, how do I word this, is going to be a lot more easy than learning how to actually rotate it. So one of the ways I taught how to do this, I used to use tracing paper, which is helpful, but then everybody wanted that on the test, and you can't have tracing paper for the test. Then I taught it using, drawing on the graph. Then, of course, the tests are all online. Big mess, okay? So what I'm going to teach you is with the rule. This is how you would do it by hand, at least a method I came up with. I grab what I kind of coined as the line of rotation, which just needs to be a line next to your figure, right? And we're just going to follow with that line. We're going to rotate the line first. So it says rotate it 90 degrees. So I'm going to do that in green. And this was my y-axis here, right? Now that's like flipped over here. Okay, so, right, and sometimes, right, it helps if you spin the paper, you can kind of tell, oh, that's what the shape should look like, right? If this was the bottom right quadrant, the fourth quadrant, that's what my rotated shape is going to look like. Okay, so that's another helpful trick. Okay.
Why is there a y next to the x-axis?
Because I just rotated the axis. Yeah, good question. Okay, so the way I think about this in a simple way is just giving directions, all right? And I like to say you have your highways and you have your byways, right? You have your highways being the x and y axes, right? And then you have your country road. How many of y'all kind of live out in the country? A little bit more. Yeah, a couple of y'all. Jealous, first of all, because better than living in the suburbs, but.
No, because I used to road one time a tree fell and we couldn't name that road.
So the way I like to say this is I'll say something like, okay, we have to get to A, right? How do we get there? Well, you go one down the highway, one step down the highway, right? Or 1 mile down the highway, however you want to do it in your head. And then 2 steps off-road. Okay, so 1, 2 steps. I'm going to follow the same directions for A prime using my new axis. One down the highway, 2 off-road. There's A prime. Yes, sir.
I don't think a Mazda 3 can do off-road.
No. Not for very long.
We've tried. No, it doesn't work.
B, you have 1 down the road, 6 off-road. 1 down the road, 6 off-road. There's B prime. And then C, you have 7 down the road, 4 off-road. So 7 down, 4 off. Right, that's not too bad, right? So there's our shape. And look, it does look like when we flipped our paper around, it was pointed in that direction, right? This is what we were looking for. That's what we got. Okay, so that's just a way you can kind of check your work there. Now let's see what our new points are. We have A, which it was at 2, 1. A prime, though, is at 1, negative 2. And what we're looking for now, I want you to keep your eyes out for the pattern, right, for this shift that's happening. There's going to be a pattern, and that's what our rule is going to be. For B, we had 1, negative 6. Or I'm sorry, we had 1, or 6, 1. Now we have 1, negative 6, rather. And then for C, we're going to have 7, negative 4. Now, I'm going to give you a second. Can anyone tell me what the pattern is for how we got from A to A prime, or B to B prime, or C to C prime? Because it's the same for all three of them.
Reflected.
That's part of it.
Rotation.
So there was a flip that happened, right? The spots, look at the digits themselves. Ignore the negative signs for now. It was 2, 1. Now what is it?
1, 2.
1, 2. Okay, so that's part of it. So let's write x, y, which is what these are, right? These are x, y points. It's going to change to y, x, which is kind of weird.
So
Okay.
X prime from here.
And then one other thing happened.
It becomes negative.
What became negative?
X.
X became negative. Our x value, right? Our original x value, right? So just focus on the 2, right? What happened to the 2? Our x value, it switched places and it switched signs. So the way we represent that is we put it in that spot and we give it a negative sign to show that flip sign. It's just like with reflection, right? Negative doesn't necessarily mean it's negative. It means that it flips its sign. Okay. Now focusing on the y, what happened to the y? Well, it was 1. It stayed 1, but it just switched spots. And the way you're going to do good on this, right, is by focusing at one letter at a time. Okay, I promise you, just focus on one letter at a time. Otherwise, you're going to say, well, why couldn't we say that was, negative y? Or, I would do the same thing. Okay, so focus on one letter at a time. What happened? X switched and flipped, and y switched sides.
So on the 180, we're just going to take our original and just transfer it down left, or are we going to end up doing another 90 to make 180?
We're gonna start here and do a 180.
Well, I'm trying to ask, will the point be still be facing upwards, or is it going to be rotated?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Okay, because like if you picked it up and rotated it, I'm thinking it's going to be facing a different direction, right? It won't look like a translation, but let's see. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do this one more time, and on the third one, I'm going to ignore the graph completely and show you the way that I think we're going to do it this year. Okay. So here's my original line. I'm going to now do that 180 degrees, making it down here now. What are my directions? Well, I'll go down the road 1, off 2. Go down the road 1, off 2. Here's A prime prime. Okay, now for B, I go down the road 1, off 6. Go down the road 1, off 6.
So you're just using the points from the image?
The pre-image. And then when I write my image points, I'm going to write those down here. So, and then I'm going to go down the road 7, off the road 4, go down my new road 7, go off the road 4. And so here's my rotated, here's the image. Okay, so the orientation did change, right? So we answered that question. And now what are our new points? Well, instead of 2, 1, we have negative 2, negative 1. Instead of 6, 1, we have negative 6, negative 1. Instead of 4, 7, we have negative 4, negative 7. This pattern may be a little easier to see. What changed?
It all became negative.
The X flipped, right? The X flipped signs and the Y flipped signs, right? Their signage both flipped. So we have negative. We're going to write that as negative X, negative Y. All right. So for any point that gets rotated 180 clockwise or 180 counterclockwise, you're just going to take your original ones and flip the signs. Okay, now last one here, and then we're going to go to our learn how to do our little cheat sheet. We've got a 270 clockwise or 90 degree counterclockwise. Instead of actually drawing this, I'm going to just use the rule. Okay, so the rule, which I'm going to show you how to get this in a second, is, let's see, here's where I start from. Here's quadrant 1. 270 clockwise is right here, so that's my rule. So I'm just going to write that down. Negative y, comma, x. So xy turns to negative y, comma, x. Okay, and with that rule, instead of having to, go down the road, off the road, all of that, and then plot the points, looking at one letter at a time, what happened to my x value? Well, it switched places. Okay, so now it's over here. What happened to my y value? Well, it switched places and it flipped the sign, so it's over here. Again, looking at one letter at a time just to make it easier. Okay, what happens to my x value? It just switches spots. What happens to my y value? It switches spots and sign. What happens to my x value? Switches spots. What happens to my y value? It switches spots and sign. And those are all my points. And if I go back and graph those now, negative 1, 2, negative 1, 6, negative 7, 4, I don't have to know how to rotate these with that method I was showing y'all. There's my rotated image already in the right spot for me. All right, and I don't expect you all to know how to do this yet, right? This is the first time you're looking at it. It's a little tricky, okay? So we're going to get some good practice. Yeah, it's a lot of steps. Okay. Any questions about it? Any particular part of it so far? Okay. And then last bit before we go to that other sheet, if we rotated it 360 degrees, what would happen?
We'd end up where we're at.
Yeah, so I'm just going to write same spot. Right, would not change location. Locación, location es igual con primero locación. Right, 360 goes all the way around. So if you want to mark it, we did a 90, we did a 180, we did a 270, and then this is a 360 all the way back. Okay, so take your little rotation rule graph now, okay, that I printed out for you, and I'm gonna do the first one with y'all. All this is you're gonna copy this down 3 times after we do it together, okay, just to get practice copying it down. 3 times. In a row after we do the first one, okay. So go ahead and draw a graph. And then first thing we want to do, I want you to label the quadrants, right, with your Roman numerals. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I should have told you before, don't make them too big because we got a few more things to write in here. I'm going to keep them a little smaller. And where the space where it says number 1. Necesitas dibujar. Sí. No. Okay. Now, here's the part that you need to understand about this. Any point I put in quadrant 1, like if I just put a random dot there, is our x value for that point going to be positive or negative if we're moving to the right? Positive, right? So I'm going to put a plus sign. What about our y values if I'm moving up? Is it going to be positive or negative? Positive. So any point that's inside the quadrant 1, and y'all have seen this before, right, is going to be positive, positive, meaning it's just going to be an x value and a y value. Okay. Now let's look at, well, let's go to quadrant 3 because it's kind of like the opposite. Okay. Negative, negative, exactly, because I'm moving to the left and I'm moving down. So negative, negative. Okay? And so the way that rule is going to be written is negative x, negative y. Okay? Now here it's a little bit trickier. What about quadrant 2? Negative and positive. Okay, and it's important you do write that part down. And what about quadrant 4?
Negative, no, negative, positive.
Positive, negative. Right, there's one of each. Okay, now the reason I haven't written the rules for it yet is because for our quadrant number 2, so 270 degrees, and quadrant number 4, 90 degrees from the front, right, 90, 180, 270, you need to flip y and write negative x. So the plus sign stays the same, right, and the negative sign stays the same, but the letters change spots. The negative sign stays the same, the plus sign stays the same, but the letters change spots. Okay, now this is the part you are going to have to, that's why I'm having you write it a couple times, that you are going to have to remember, okay? Yep, and so what I want you to do now is take some time, just copy this down 3 more times, just to get practice writing it, and the parts I want you to focus on are what I highlighted. Those are the rules that we're going to get from writing this down, okay? But by writing this down, it kind of like sets us up to just have these rules memorized, and it'll help you out a lot. Okay, so do this. Go ahead and turn off our video now.
Are we the only teacher that's never paused it here?
That's never what?
Paused it.
Yeah,
This licorice was paused it when she's recording the video.
It's not paused.
I guess it's not.
Okay, so you should have gotten these drawn, and now we're going to use it. So these directions say, the coordinates below represent rotations. Use what you've learned today to describe what type of rotation occurred. Okay, so let's look at number 9 together.
Teachers, excuse this interruption. Just want to remind those students that received the form to volunteer for Special Olympics tomorrow that the informational meeting is today. The meeting has been moved to
Any of y'all doing that?
Be sure to check in with your 7th period teacher.
You've been gone all day?
And then head to the gym quickly. In that meeting today, your 7th period in gym A. Have a great day.
Okay, so we have 9, 8 is changing to 8, 9. So let's just look at our x value first. What happened to our x value? It's on the opposite side and it switched signs. What happened to our y value? It's on the front. Okay? So so this is how you use this graph, right? We start at quadrant 1, right? Which one of these does this match up with? Y minus x?
4.
Quadrant 4. Okay, that's going to be a 90-degree clockwise rotation. So 90 degrees clockwise. And that would also be 270 counterclockwise. Okay, this is important. I hope you're watching. Otherwise, you're not going to know what's going on next period, 8th period. Okay, then let's go to our next one. Let's look at our x value first. What's happening to our x value? It switched spots, but did it switch signs? No, so just leave it as x. What happened to our y value? It switched spots, and it switched signs. So we've got negative yx. Negative yx is a 270-degree clockwise rotation. Or 90 clockwise. Does everyone get that? It's right here. Just matching the rule. And again, you always starting at your first quadrant. How do you get there? 270 clockwise or 90 counterclockwise. Last one. Let's look at our x first. X is in the same spot, but the sign flipped. Y is in the same spot, but the sign flipped. What's that one? 180 clockwise, right? Or 180 counterclockwise. All right. In this last part, you will get questions like this. It'll say what was preserved and what changed, right? What does preserve mean? Keep the same, right? So did the size of our shape stay the same? Yeah, so put preserved. Preserve. Did the orientation, the way the shape is pointing, stay the same?
That did not.
No, so that changed.
I can't put C and H and C.
Okay, and the vertices, those changed as well. You can just cross that off, though. We don't need to differentiate those. All right, you can pack up now once you have that written down.